Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sticks. We are doing some ANS versus OSP classic gameplay here. 3,000 points per player for their fleet budget. 1,000 points to win it here on Sticks with a 5 control point map. Team 1, ANS in the blue trunks is Dragon Bender, Firebird, HIMARS, and Tasty Cookie. Team 2 for the OSP in the orange trunks is Airborne Ninja, Microsoft Edgelord, AD Riser, and Productions Band something. I don't quite remember what the rest of it was, but Productions for the namesake right now. We'll figure out their full name when we get into the game proper, but we see these teams now deploying. We're seeing quite a few assets sent towards the C side from the OSP, a couple of them going down towards D point, and looks like the E-cappers as well. Nice distribution there, trying to contest that top of the map. In turn, the ANS is going to be deploying, it looks like a, ooh, hey, look at that, Tactical Breach Wizards references there, Jen Kellen and Dessa Banks. Nice little dynamic duo. We're seeing the Mars fleet here just is all letters headed towards that E point. Interesting stuff. And then we've got a couple of these other ones kind of going over their way towards the D side here. So a bit of an even distribution as well. Not as much sent towards the C side here. Just looks like one, maybe two of the DTSC tags. It's a double up there from Firebird and Tasty showing the same tag. So we'll just have to try and guess which one is which. So front lines are being deployed right about now. We see that the timer is going as enough of the match has locked in. Let's see just what they ended up bringing and dismantle each other. I'm going to try to get through the fleets fairly fast, as again, I've been trying to improve my content creation stuff. So we'll see if I can remember how to get through the fleets, or if I get distracted horribly again and going over all the little nitpicky details. It's the downside of me doing some fleet reviews and community helpouts here and there. I'm like, oh yeah, consider this build thing, or maybe like try this thing. And well, you just get distracted seeing what exactly everyone's decided to bring. All right, come on. Lock in it now. You all have deployed your ships. You can figure out where to go. 50 seconds on the clock. OSP is ready to go. They have committed to their strategy. Couple cappers to B point, couple to E point and D point, and then a big chunk of tonnage headed up towards C side by the looks of it. So the creaching's upon us. There's Tasty's signature line. All right, let's see what we got here coming in on the deployment screen. Going to see ourselves I believe a carrier. Yep, looks like a more line with, yep, full carrier banks on this thing. So a lot of planes in this guy. Coming in from Airborne Ninja, I believe. I recognize the decal there, little bird thing. All right, let's see. In a second, we'll be able to check the internals of that thing. Anyways, we're going to see the, yep, there we go, Airborne Ninja, 3K Moorline, the Callanan Bay, whole bunch of bombers named Sawfish and this thing. Very good stuff overall. Got a whole bunch of Barracudas as well. Phantom Fighters here. A couple of these Halberd Skiffs of two different varieties. Interesting. I'm guessing that some of these are radar, some of them are wake eland. That's kind of smart. All right, I like that. Very cool. Let's see, what are they supporting by? Okay, here we go. And a cello pair over here. We're going to see these things have got 250 on them. Interesting. Got some Aurora Cheeks and the soft kill in the back. Yep, makes sense. This one's going to be Plasma. Interesting combo. I'm curious to see how well that works out. All right. We can see over here Microsoft Edgelord as well, deploying in the kind of top slot there. Looks like a 250 broadsider on this thing with Rocket Backpack. One of Edge's little tricks there. Going to see another one joining it alongside it. Going to see over here, it's got the little T-20 pinpoint lock shuttle and similar style. That one just all deployed in formation. Productions Bandit, that's their name fully. All right, we're going to see this is a mass driver liner. All right, very nice stuff on that thing. No fanciness to that, just a bit of point defense to go with it. Two of them, actually, though. That's going to be a lot of supportive fire. Very heavy on the support there, but still able to take a couple of these little T-20 cheaper gun cappers, seeing them distributed across the map now, headed towards cap points. Seeing them running out towards the three respective caps, and then looks like, yep, just adding a couple more of them on as they're going to go for Seaside. That's the OSP. Seeing an early warning radar coming off of the carrier here. Interesting little tech choice, but I guess if we have the power, why not? Speaking of carriers, over here, Dragon Bender's going to be fielding a double levy, quadruple levy build coming from ANS. Okay, that's something. Dragon Bender over here has got themselves, yep, it's just, oops, all bombers with torpedoes, if I had to guess. Has some cluster bombs, but yeah, two types of those torpedoes coming out for that thing. Gonna see just a duplicate of that one from here. Yep. All right, so oops, all torpedoes, couple sundials off the deck. Firebird over here going to be rocking a 450 battleship with size 3 backpack. Very nice stuff in that thing, able to kind of hold that frontline aggression back for a bit, at least until these carriers can get their work done. They've got a little gun corvette headed towards C point here, assuming that the enemy does not instantly snipe it out with their various assets that could get a cap off for some plays. D point as well, seeing the initial rollouts here, as that's going to be the light assets. Let's take a look at Tasty stuff, as I want to just go back and check carriers. This is going to be, yep, oops, all bombers again, and oops, all bombers again. Okay, so that is a lot of bomber, but there's a bunch of Barracudas getting airborne, and bombers have no defense against those fighter craft unless they specifically take the S2 bay to run into. Well, I guess they could do like anti-craft torpedoes, but that would be very odd. Anyways, HIMARS coming in with a beam destroyer down here on the bottom of the map, clearing through that stuff. As we see here, HIMARS also has one of their corvettes going over under the E point and initially taking that. They've got one of them accompanying the D-point cap over here. It's going to be a VLS-2 vet. Interesting. No payload in that, just for HP, I guess. All right, interesting little tech. HIMARS had one beam destroyer on the bottom of the map, one of them watching the D side. They had a little gun brick over here, Mark 62s and that, just kind of moving its way out. I wonder if HIMARS likes beam destroyers. First blood is going to be up here as the Daggers Drawn walks into the wrong neighborhood, gets lit up by literally everything on the OSP side. Those 250 caliber guns are 250 millimeter rather, is very effective against these lighter assets like so. Just load HE and let her rip. So ANS going to be getting into the points first, and a kind of surprise twist there is usually OSP at first to touch that with the shuttle, seeing these initial rollouts. Just look through the last of HIMARS stuff. They have anything fancy? Mark 62. Okay, HIMARS actually running a triple wing down here, and then going to be seeing off some of these other threats. So really trying to develop that east side of the map and get that capper done. Meantime, though, OSP is committed towards this seaside. They've got themselves 2 SLs and 2 bulkers just pushing for that. The front line for the ANS team is basically just Firebird solo here. So Firebird going to have to contest against pretty much twice their budget's worth in terms of frontline stuff. That said, Firebird has the range advantage with those 450 guns and also the size 3 backpack here. Yep, a couple of creature missiles in there. See the setups of the internals here. If you so desire, you can pause if this goes up on YouTube and then just look at that back. All right, Whistler Flight is airborne here from Airborne Ninja. Funny how that name works out. 20 mil on the nose, jam pods. Yep, a couple of these Wake and Act missiles here. Looks like they're just going, yeah, super heavy on that size 1 spam for this thing. Just nice little way of contesting the skies. They're forcing enemy to evade. Spearman down here is still somehow alive despite the relentless RPF that was coming off of these Corvettes. Probably doesn't realize this thing is still up. Should realize now, oh, never mind. HIMARS actually has the plan, and the plan is a very big beam, so Best Girl is going to claim a Spearman there to its kill count. All right. We see what's on the board right now. It's going to take these players a hot minute to get their craft airborne. We see Tasty has already gotten multiple flights up, and we're seeing Dragon Bender starting to get a couple as well. See already them combining them into the larger craft formations, able to do these super scary bombers. When you start to get things like 8 bombers, it is terrifying to see just how much they can do against the enemy. 16 torpedoes is no slouch. Act with ARAD Val on one and ARAD with Act secondary on the other one. Looks like by the settings here, this is going to be, if I had to guess, it's 200 meters a second, 3.6 Gs a corkscrew, and 2.5 kilometer distance, judging by the naming. Still, could be just a mind game. We never know. Might be an old missile name as well. Anyways, frontline kind of commencing here as Firebird is going to be pointing their floodlight this way, trying to spot the enemy. You're going to see in turn 80 Riser over here pointing their nose towards the incoming. See if they can't do a little bit of plasma and then maybe some 250. If the battleship keeps range, it will be able to hold off these forces fairly well. Playing that dodgy-less game is quite good when you have that incoming plasma, sort of a slower velocity projectile. Can make it so that it's a lot harder to take you out. At the same time, though, this is the one frontline asset for ANS. They are really banking on these carriers getting their work done. And if they end up running into a bunch of these Barracuda flights, or otherwise just like even encountering a skiff like this with its little chin gun there, that could be devastating to them. So they have to make sure they're taking favored engages. Should be seeing, yep, there we go. Initial handshakes exchange here as frontline players find each other. 250 and Plasma barking its way out across the stars here. We're going to see if the War Weary takes it or not. Yep, you can see now Firebird coming to a halt briefly to dodge some of those incoming shots, pointing their nose over. They might take a hit or two here, but that's not that bad. Battleships are tough gals with a lot of armor, so we'll just see a bunch of that Plasma. Yeah, splash a little bit into the nose there, but that's not nearly enough to do anything significant. Follow-up punch is going to be trying to hit that with 250 from Microsoft Edgeblow's fleet and also some rockets or bombs and such. We will see just how the carrier players develop. HIMARS occupying the E point pretty comfortably here and the D point as well. Here we go. A couple of these anti-craft munitions coming off. These are normally able to be shot down by something like coil toes or even 20 mil Tanto nose guns. But in this case right now, these STMs are just going to be finding their way into these bombers that are taking a lot of damage from that. So a bunch of these going to be seen off. That said, there's a finite quantity of those. What there is not a finite quantity of, though, right now of is these fighters. Duster Flight looking for doing something. Needs to get into combat quickly. They are on hard burn, probably going around the rock here. Cascade Flight and Hunter Flight over here. So that's like 10 torpedo bombers still on target. Yep, Tasty here working in conjunction with their other carrier player, trying to see what they can get done with this. It is going to be quickly on Airborne Ninja to respond to this and mop up all these bombers they can. Here we are seeing a bunch of the Auroras doing very good work shooting down many of these, but now the torpedoes are out. That's a lot of health bar to blitz through. You can see just why torpedoes are scary in a second once they start finding impact on target. Here they come, and that is going to be some impacts across the top. Yep, crippling damage there for the moment. You see this thing's reactor go off there. Yeah, both reactors knocked out for the moment, and the guns having some rough times. Blind Guardian takes it worse as we see a bunch of it to the midsection here, knocking the lockers and the Plasma there. So That is going to be a fairly decisive swing in the front line. Firebird now trying to capitalize on that, just holding down the trigger, letting the 450 fly. In turn, we're going to see a bunch of those bombers do get taxed on the way out there, so they're down to just 7 of the original. I believe it was like 16 flight. Jester Flight out here finding Warden Sundial, going to be trying to take out some of the enemy's airborne assets there, trying to deprive them of radar awareness. HIMARS comfortably holding the E point, D point, and A point here. Beam Destroyer over here from this angle is pretty good. You can cover that E point very nicely. You're seeing it now rotating over, trying to look for some other things that could attack. Also see the D point here, potentially getting aggressed on. We're going to see if Production's Bandit, rather, is able to get into range. Firing out their flat guns. Seeing some more of these missiles coming out. Okay, these are... Oh, interesting. Firebird with the Size 3 hybrid backpack of anti-craft munitions. Those could be scary. Beams as well being deployed right now, following up on that missile punch there. 80 Riser eating it on the front line very fiercely. The combination of the 450 and Beam going to do devastating things against a ship that's been crippled by missile strikes like that. See more and more of these fighter craft now kind of like hanging out here, loitering, recognizing the threat. 80 Riser just kind of getting their clock cleaned in the initial engagement. Battle Short is held down by HIMARS. The Jungler is going to be burning through its beam right now to try and take out one of these cells, make sure it does not get to retaliate. That said, though, Mass Drive is going to start finding their way home as the support swing is going to come in here. Mass Drivers are able to do some decent damage against battleships once they start layering into those large hitboxes of the guns up front. We'll see them punch right through that armor. A couple more of these missiles coming out here. SWMGs looking to pick off some of the Barracudas. A couple of interceptor missiles coming off of, I'm not even sure what ships in this case. Probably VLS-2 somewhere on that ANS side that we had missed in the initial readings. There we go. Now we see what happens when a couple of fighters find bombers. They take care of them very quickly. Some more of these going to be going against these aircraft here. These are normally the Size 3 hybrid intended for anti-bomber use, but for right now, they're just being used against the available fire aircraft. So, hey, if it gets you some plane kills, that can be good. Trying to trim out the enemy assets in order to let your bombers through is a very good idea, especially when you have 6,000 points worth of bomber assets. You need to make sure you're hitting target. All right, let's see. Whistler Flight down below here. Another air patrol asset. Just kind of towing a little bit close over here. If that defender kicks on, those could be seen off. Anyways, Spearman is going to get taxed here. Actually, wait, hang on a second. Spearman, we already saw that ship go down. There appears to be 2 Spearmen in this match, and it looks like Best Girl is going to claim both of them. All right, meanwhile on the front line, 80 Riser, despite taking a heavy amount of damage, still with a crit going on. Are they able to fix that or not? Main bus short and a reactor overload. That's a little close for comfort, but they should be able to fix that one. Seeing now some heavy fire being thrown into Firebird. Firebird in turn losing their front gun here. We see the Mark 68 gets knocked out. A couple of the other systems, Parallax and the damage control centrals up top getting taxed as well. Antenna surprisingly still alive, but that will probably get shot out shortly. It's notorious the battleship antenna is a bullet magnet. Anyways, HIMARS looks like they want to resecure themselves that 3-point lead. They have comfortably got themselves into the second quarter of the game with 250 points, now turned to 260. And OSP in this case, just following a little bit behind, but still doing A-okay over here. Firebird just going to be smacked. Ooh, looks like 80 Riser cuts it a little too close. Could not fix that bloom in time. And over here, the Sanguine Sanctuary is going to be totally cooked like a fish. Yeah, that thing is stripped of all of its armor. Very soft target there. As unfortunate, yeah, 80 Riser would be like, damn, 2% off fixing it. I thought it was going to be close on that one. And I was like, maybe they get it, maybe they don't. So one of the risks. Anyways, that was the Plasma Cello, I believe. Yes, so that was the one can opener that OSP had against a warship like this. They're going to have to rely on mass drivers and just sheer volume of fire to eventually bring this thing down. Maybe a good bomber strike. Bombard Flight is airborne with their own complement of torpedoes. Oh, no, it's just got... oh, maybe that's intentional, actually. Act primary with a thermal secondary. Normally thermal used for the validation, but could just be to keep it straight in case it gets jammed out. Anyways, going to see a bunch of these SCM-2s finding broadsword flight over here. These should happily splash through all of these. Bit of an investment there, but you know what? It's worth it. Deplane the enemy, make it count. Yeah. Whistler Flight eating all of these things up. This is the counter to when you go oops all in with these carriers here. Well, you can get some very devastating torpedo strikes out, like we see Tasty and Dragonbender trying to sync up their runs here to get 16 torpedo bombers on target for, I believe, a total of, that'd be 32 torps. You can also end up losing them quite quickly when someone like Duster Flight comes over here. And if I remember right, if we take a look back here, yeah, none of these have any defenses. There is nothing stopping these Barracudas, should they find those carriers, from just sitting on top of them. See if Duster Flight finds them or not. Just barely missing Avarice as they only have the front-facing radars. We'll see if they kick on there or not. Yep, there we go. Quick turn on saying, hey, wait, that looks like a ship. And then you got to find Avarice Flight there, quickly cleaning it up as they're able to run down those bombers. Bombers only 100 meters a second versus these Barracudas peaking at like 112 to 118 there. Relentless 450, Relentless 250 fire being laid into the 450 battleship there, getting a little bit ahead of myself. Avarice Flight largely managing to get away for the moment. They are still slowly getting run down as more of these missiles going to find their way in. So the question is, can they get the torpedoes off before it's too late? Seeing Caltrop Flight over here having a little bit of a desync issue. Happens sometimes, but that guy's just flying fancy. Gonna see if Microsoft Edgelord is able to do anything about these or not. Never mind, Meteor Flight immediately on the inbound, going to be finding these guys bow on. All right, there's going to be the Furball indicator of the century right there, just showing off all of these various fighter crafts going into it. Caltrop Flight is going to be eating it from these 20 mil rounds. We see, Meteor actually tasked after Avarice in this case, not hitting at Caltrop, but Caltrop also taking quite a bit of damage there. Aurora's increasing their damage per second as well against this. That is full deflection if I ever saw one. Caltrop Flight going to be cleaned up here comfortably. Very nice stuff from the OSP side, deflecting all of those incoming bombers. Looks like over here, Firebird trying to do their best. Okay, Firebird does have some of those size 2s. Vren's Breadstick 2.0, a little tuning of the popular breadstick made by Vren, the creator of Kyanite. Or curator of Kyanite. I forget if it's creator or curator. It was one of those. I think it's curator. Anyways, Vren, buddy of the channel. Nice to see his work being shown off here. Firebird able to see off a bit of those fighter craft. At the same time, Firebird is currently over here with a decently shot up a battleship that is taking a couple hits from mass drivers and such on the flank here. Mass drivers deciding to go up here. Unfortunately, getting a bit of a masking issue, not quite staggering these things correctly. It means that they will not be able to fire all of their guns. We see 2 of these things currently stuck, not able to shoot. Anyways, here comes some torpedoes out, like we had mentioned. We're going to see what happens now. Yeah, firing the breadsticks off there, unfortunate. Trying to see off what threats you could. Torpedoes are going to swing and a miss for the most part. Yeah, looks like it. Yeah, those are just going to be, unfortunately, seduced by the active decoy or the chaff clouds there. That's what Axe Seeker only will get you. You need to get a validator of sorts. And that, as we saw here, these sledges are thermal, but they're not thermal validator. So, important difference on those ones. Take a look right now, though. Anna's still leading it with a 3 cap. HIMARS pretty comfortably sitting on the E points, D points, and A points right now. OSP does not have the most in the way of shuttles anymore. As we see, there's 1, 2, and that's going to be it for shuttles. So they're just wisely keeping these things in reserve. R3 would kill this. I'm going to just say shh to Turbo there, who was unfortunately talking in the alt chat there. So yeah, remember, don't backseat the players when they're in the game. We try and respect sportsmanship rules around here, and it's just not nice when you get the spectators saying, oh, you should do this thing. It's like, all right, buddy, I know. I'll deal with that in the post-game. Shrapnel Flight coming in with some torps as well. Might be efficient for some more action over here. Firebird doing the correct thing of just trying to keep their range advantage, see what they can do to like hold out against this resilient front line. Let the setup for their teammates go through and see if they can do something about that. Same time, though, we're starting to see some light caliber guns here. I believe that's the 250 Acela. Yep, 250 Acela letting rip with its turrets down into, what's that, the, where did I click onto? There it is. Yes, this Corvette here, the Mars H. This thing's going to be getting seen off a little bit. No RPF on the side of the OSP since they don't get access to that munition. That's ANS only. So despite having the airborne advantage right now, these Barracudas doing a very good job keeping the skies clear and honest. We're going to see if these torpedo bombers are able to find an angle into something. We see Cleaver Flight over here not intercepted right now. Microsoft Edgelord may be feeling a little bit vulnerable as these things are going to be over here. Mass Driver's finding the carriers apparently from spectators. That's going to be important because all of these over here are fairly fragile. Yeah, seeing these things just taking a little bit of damage here. Those magazines could potentially get redded out, and with only 1 team, that's got to be a hot minute before you can fix your stuff. Losing the launch pads as well could be crucial because they are relying on 2 of those large launch pads to do anything this game. Okay, a couple of these gunshots going off here. Clearly a position fire or just trying to estimate with the jamming there. Seeing Cleaver Flight now approaching under HIMARS' jammer. HIMARS also getting the beam on target, so if these torpedoes do connect, Gale Grenades, CMD with Home on Gem secondary, these might be a good strike. Killer Queen looking like they're going to be biting it here. It's going to be a couple good impacts on target there. Not the most in the way of damage, but still enough to take out the reactor briefly and knock out one of those rocket launchers. Here comes the secondaries, the boosted bombs trying to find their way in, but looks like they wisely are taking flak there to deflect that. All right, both of Edge's Bulkers going to be getting a little bit battered and bruised there, but still not the crippling knockout you were hoping for. You see Whistler Flight over here trying to engage whatever it can. Chasing Shadows just relentlessly diving through the OSP's backline. Oh no, Dragon Bender unfortunately surrendering there. Who got their ships? Oh dear, Tasty now piloting 6,000 points worth of Oops All Bombers. That's got to be interesting to coordinate strikes. Structure break, that is another thing to point out on one of these bulkers. The King Crimson appears to be fine for that indicator, but Killer Queen over here has been structure broken, so any damage dealt to this thing is going to migrate. Very handy when you get those beam destroyers firing their beams off, and then you can migrate the damage through the entire ship. Chasing Shadows down here, trying to make a run for it. Smaller targets, so the 250's not quite accurate enough for a second. Shouldn't thermal validate that. if they were validators, which they are not. I think Turbo over here just trying to play catch up on Shrapnel Flight here with the thermal secondaries. The thermal is just as a seeker type. It's literally just the wake seeker, but in this case, it's a little bit different when it's in the validator set because it lets you validate from basically every angle, which can be very, very good, especially against those larger, warmer ships. All right, Grizzly Flight down here, kind of just hanging out. So unfortunately, within this, one of the quirks of Nebulous with the inheriting fleet things is that if you have airborne craft, I don't believe they transfer over correctly. So a couple of Dragon Bender stuff is going to be kind of like stuck for the moment until it goes back to the carrier and Tasty rearms it. Anyways, Tasty trying to get some more of these flights kind of patrolling around, seeing groups of 2 looking to do some stuff as they were seen off largely by those air patrol wings earlier on. The Barracudas are looking like they need to land right now. A couple of them have taken some fierce damage by the looks of it. Airborne Ninja gonna be trying to get some stuff up and out. Actually, that's a little bit of a concern. Where is all the Barracudas? Jester Flight kind of out here carding nobody versus Phantom Flight over here, which is trying to do something in the area around here. A couple of these bombers coming in from different angles there. There we go. King Crimson getting itself gutted by the Best Girl over here. That Beam Destroyer has been relentless this game, cleaning up things resting onto both of these points. Turbo disconnecting there. Yeah, Structure Break means that every time that you do damage wherever it is on this hull, it's going to migrate into an intact component, so you can see these things quickly get destroyed by those beams regardless of where they hit. Killer Queen trying to do something, is firing onto what I believe is the jamming lob, but is going to be eating torpedoes for its trouble. There you go, Structure Break as well. This thing crippled for the moment. Can restore its stuff, but it's only a matter of time before Best Girl, with the cover of its jamming, is able to rotate its gun over and then lay into that thing. Yeah, Edge unfortunately having a rough go at life as they've been isolated over here without fighter coverage, and now the follow-up punch from 2 beam destroyers is going to be seeing off their groupings. Here come some of these torpedoes finally finding their way in. There you go. Yep, that's going to be dealing a lot of damage. Edge just flat out surrendering, saying, nah, boss, I'm done. I got nothing left here. Just completely wiped off the map on that one. Unfortunate stuff there. Meteor over here is going to be finally chewing up those fighters, but unfortunately not soon enough. Needed to get them on the approach, and unfortunately did not. They do get to punish the incoming bombers, but still, there's quite a bit left in these carriers, if I remember right. Tasty actually running a little low on these ones. Still has airborne assets. And Dragon Bender over here, I think, yep, still has a fair complement of these bombers that they're starting to equip. So there's more bombing to be done. The question is, what is the OSP going to do about it? They have air control assets. They've just not, unfortunately, been able to keep them on station nearby the things they want to protect. So, yeah. Shadowwood is a money getting stealth build. You got to sneak. Yeah, so in this case, you see a little bit of the technique there where they discovered they were not getting purchase over here. So they thought, okay, let's look somewhere else. Where can we get our stuff? In this case, now we're seeing a 5 cap going through as ANS just kind of managing to secure themselves the natural field here. Not enough stuff currently present to see off these light threats. Havoc Flight here with their 100 mil gun pods, very effective against light assets like this. Still just able to keep itself alive using the combination of the aux steering and the mag to share some damage, and then the reactor here. So they will manage to secure a 5 cap. With one OSP fleet down and the other one looking pretty injured here, I don't want to say like this is fully in ANS's advantage, but at the same time, like HIMARS has been doing a lot of work cleaning out some of the capper assets, and those torpedo bombers did just completely core out a 3,000 point fleet there. So with the support fire assets in the back here of dual mass driver liner, one of which is currently missing a barrel in the process of restoring that thing. Triple gun plotting on these, quadruple gun plotting. Wow, these are probably the most accurate mass driver liners in existence. They are able to do some damage over here at Firebird, but at the same time, losing that plasma cello earlier, unfortunately just gambling on keeping that reactor from going off there, tossing them that. Not really a can opener left for the 250 on the OSP team that then got knocked out subsequently. So the only frontline asset really left on OSP is this completely armor-stripped 250 Acello. That is a little bit scary, if I do say so. And Torpedo's going to find their way into Airborne Ninja, who unfortunately did not have air patrol active right now, to see all of these hangar banks getting knocked out, and the bulk mag as well. Can only restore so many of these, and the CIC too. Good to see a large storage being taken. I love seeing this in these builds because it's quite nice when you lose a hangar bank or two to get them back up. 450 as well, going to be going after this thing with it being structure broken. I think that might just be Doki Bird out of the... Doki Bird. I keep reading the Doki tag and think of other streamer people that are funny. But yeah, that might just be Airborne Ninja here out of the game proper. Meteor Flight is airborne right now, but with no ammunition to see off more bombers, they don't really have much they can do right now. I think this might just be ANS comfortably taking it, as I believe that, yeah, with the carrier about to go down just from this 450, all that's really left that's healthy is a set of mass driver liners and a singular 250 Acello that will generally just lose against this frontline presence that Firebird is able to maintain here. 16 teams in this thing, 3 restorers still left. Decent chunk of these guns still active. You can see those mass drivers are very effective against those guns. They can quickly red them out and disable them, but they don't have the damage needed to actually properly break them. So they need to rely on follow-up punches from 250 or 450, or a lot of plasma and 100 mil following that up, and maybe some bombs too if you get the target chance. Checkmate flight coming down here with a whole bunch of torpedo bombers going after those mass driver liners in the back. ANS just about to enter into the 4th quarter here in a very strange game. This is a very all-in play, which, as we see, if it is not correctly handled or punished, can be incredibly lethal. So have to watch out for certain things like this, as these can be a little bit of an outlier that you have to keep an eye out for. Realize just how many carriers or bombers the enemy might have and say, okay, you guys are doing this thing. I got to counter my game plan and adjust. Anyways, should see these bombers from Checkmate Flight finding these in time. They're looking like they see them, I believe. These are on track here, so they should be able to get their run in. A little bit of damage there, as I think AD Riser just out of desperation trying to fire HE against these, see if they can stop them. A little bit of Aurora damage going to kick in there. Only half damage against bombers because of their armor thickness. You should be able to get themselves on target shortly. One of them might be getting taxed here. Shadow Wizard Money Gang discriminates against nobody, and Spam Toes discriminate against no creatures. Yeah, complete lack of the spam toes in this is kind of interesting, because those were normally like one of the things people would talk about, myself included, saying, hey, these are pretty powerful. We should think about these. Instead, just ANS going all in on the bomber play. You see them now impact the mass driver liner, instantly taking out one of those mass drivers. Over here, we're going to see, yep, more damage being dealt to this thing, losing all of its various assets as it just gets laid into by Firebird with the big old battleship up there. 4-cap comfortably sitting right now for the ANS, and OSP just kind of out of assets to do anything about it. 2 mass driver liners do not have any pushing presence. They can do good damage like we'd mentioned, but as it currently stands, they just don't have an answer to the battleship bearing down on them, and they don't really have an asset that can go around to deal with any of these beam destroyers over here that have been zoning so well. Might have to steal the positions there. That's a very good rock to sit on. You can cover the E point from below and then maybe swing over to the D point if you're quick. 2 beam destroyers there, very comfortable positioning. All right, potentially even guard your A cap here in case something decides to swing around. I think this was a little bit of an execution error from the OSP side, as they got a little confident there. We're trying to peel open the armor of the battleship here, which did its job at dodging and being distracting, just in time for the carriers to come through and unleash their initial bomber wave. Kind of the surprise caught the OSP off guard, and then they were able to, well, they could counter some of the bombers. They were not quite able to do enough there, as unfortunately Edge got isolated on one side and was taken out quickly. So, never using tungsten again in your life. What a joke. It's not meant for what you're being forced to use it for. Yeah. So in this case, over here, production's having a little bit of issue, as again, mass drivers are very powerful assets, but going all in on a mass driver fleet like this without the frontline follow-up to then exploit that. Again, mass drivers are a support asset. They're not meant for killing super capitals. They're meant for crippling them somewhat, so then your other assets can do some very good work against them. Seeing the Auroras going off here against Menace Flight. Almost looked like Menace Flight was shooting their own lasers there, but that'd be kind of cool. Like little laser asset on one of these craft. Might be a little bit hard to balance, but still, it would be interesting. Anyways, these are going to find their way in. An AD Riser does not have enough Aurora to deflect this many torpedoes. Tasty saying goodbye there is the Sanguine Sanctuary. Actually, surprisingly still alive, but does need to force a scram immediately on these, as these will cook off otherwise. Magazine as well, looking like it's going to do a detonation there. Yep, Maggot cook off inbound. Here comes the bomb follow-up, going to say nuh-uh to that structure break, and then the bombs for the knockout. That is the tech play there. I believe it was, what was it? This secondary flight. Was it Shrapnel? No. Crusader? No. Was it Battery? Which one was it? Here it is. Yeah, okay, so these ones. Crusader Flight was actually a cluster bomb follow-up there after the initial strike. So that's going to be all of the OSP frontline completely removed from the game. Just the mass drivers left over. So bit of an interesting kind of like edge case build coming in here. This can also get folded very quickly if they have fighter coverage on the intercept there. We saw just how quickly those bombers died off, but unfortunately, Airborne Ninja not quite able to be everywhere at once, because of course players are limited by their micro and also the radar coverage they have. Can't quite see around those rocks and detect those incoming strikes going towards the grouping that we saw there from Edge's Bulkers. So, general damage. Production has been, I think, one of the newer players, if I remember correctly, having a little bit of kind of confusion about what the mass driver is used for. For anyone not familiar, the mass driver is meant to deal a lot of damage since it ignores a ship's damage reduction, and it essentially is a, how do I describe it? It's like Imagine if like you had a missile but fired from a railgun barrel. That's probably the best way to describe it for its damage. You smack into something, you can split some damage. Battleship from the front like this, there's a lot of different modules you can split damage into. Mass drivers, like, again, the all-in kind of like backline double mass driver support fleet can be a bit much. If you go with a singular one and then a couple of other assets, like let's say a mass driver, and if you want to go full support fleet, a rail, a cello, that can do a very nice combo, and then a couple of these little cappers around the map. But yeah, double mass driver liner like this, unfortunately, just even if it does do damage against these ships, which, if you take a look here, I'm not sure how many energy regulators they had. They had just the one? Reactors, energy regulator, reactor, radar, reactor. Okay, so yeah, unfortunately, these things, while they are very accurate, they just basically don't have the damage per second you're looking for to cripple a ship like that, as Firebird was able to knock out some of the guns and then comfortably do a good job pushing it against that. And again, Styx is one of these smaller maps of that angling, so that's GG being called there. All right. Let's take a look in the post-game scene here. Dragon Bender was able to get some strikes out, but unfortunately it got disconnected there by something or other. Firebird here, able to do solo frontline surprisingly well considering what was up against them. Could have been a very different story had some of the bombers on the OSP side found Firebird, and then that would just be free real estate for the OSP to then push forward. Heimar is doing a very good job, the best girl living up to her name there, able to get a lot of beam damage out onto those bulkers, and then also sweep through a couple shuttles. We saw the Junkler as well getting that done. Tasty Cookie inheriting Dragon Bender's fleet. They're able to do a respectable amount of super torpedo bombing themselves. And remember, this is a build that if you are allowed to get away with it, can do quite a bit of that stuff. But you just got to be careful, especially with the ability for the enemy to just bring some Barracuda fighters to intercept you. Got to watch out for that, as OSP does enjoy bringing along the cheap Journeyman or the more expensive Moorline carrier like we see here. Edge, unfortunately, just, getting booped there and realizing that the writing was on the wall and deciding to call it early, going to throw in the towel there. Right call, I think, honestly, given that they were basically going to die in a minute or so and they wanted to get on to do other stuff. Productions band over here having a little bit of a rough time trying to find the effect of mass drivers for that. Right, I think that's that's gonna be about where we call it. I like seeing the assets brought by the OSP team. I think they had some cool tech on display, but I just don't think they quite got it down the way they wanted. Plasma got taken out early, unfortunately. That was the one can opener asset against the battleship, which had the heavy enough armor to tank all that 250, which is part of what the battleship's appeal is. It's largely immune to 250 from the front, unless you put like an absurd amount of it into it. Anyways, I've been NekoboyBlue. I'm going to cap off this recording. This was a weird enough game. I'm going to post it. And you know what? I might just call it like, SWMG? Yeah, we're just going to call it that one and not explain a thing about it. And people can figure this out when they watch. I will catch you all in the next one. Meow meow.